Hi everyone, Jenn DuBell here, and today I'm super excited to present to you my very first project as a member of the 2021-2022 brand ambassadors for Graphic 45. And today I am going to show you my album, and I'm also going to show you a couple um, of the techniques I used on the inside of my album to create a waterfall and what I have learned people call quick pages. So for starters, this album was made with ocean blue. I absolutely love this collection. I love anything to do with the beach. And so this collection just really speaks to me. And I love the use of the blues and browns with the ivory and white and that color palette. And I wanted to keep it extremely natural, just like the paper. So I've used some raw chipboard pieces, some sand in a little bottle here, some shells, and burlap string, burlap ribbon that is stitched in natural and burlap. There's also some rope and jute used on the inside of my album. I just liked that together to create the natural look and bring it out of the papers as well. So this album is actually a chipboard album that measures 5.5 by 8. And I have created this album using chipboard and navy blue cardstock. The front of my album has these striped papers here, and I have matted everything in here with a Kraft cardstock. This portion here is a raised wrapped chipboard followed by another raised wrapped chipboard, and that gives you that elevated effect. Again, I use some shells. These are actually the Graphic 45 bouquet collection in ivory and natural. The spine of this measures 1.5 inches, and I have put the paper on there also with Kraft as my mat. The ribbon closure, I added a button. This is a wooden button that I had in my stash, and a bow, as well as this little charm that I created using a sticker from the 12 by 12 collection pack and a piece of scrap with chipboard in between. There is chipboard available for this collection as well that you can purchase. I just really love this, so I used that piece by itself. And I used some metal charms, a little seahorse, and there's a starfish, and a little crab, and a shell. On the back side of my album, again, I continued with the Kraft mat and the striped paper, along with a cutaway that looks like the postage stamps there, and another one of those chipboard starfish. So let's open this up. Again, like I said, it has a ribbon closure, which wraps underneath. A lot of people like to put their ribbons under their base papers, and you can do that as well if that's your preference. I like it to show, especially on this album, I really wanted to see that burlap. So mine goes underneath this chipboard element around and around to the back. So we'll open this up. I just love all these colors. It's just so vibrant. And for my album, I did use most of the 12 by 12 collection pack. I used a lot of the 8 by 8 paper pad, the journaling and ephemera cards, and a lot of the cutaways, as well as a square tag in Kraft and a regular tag in Kraft, as well as the dies that go with these to create the covers. So here you see on this first page, I have an angled pocket, and there is a Kraft tag there with some journaling and stamping on the back. This is an envelope notched pocket, which I will also show you how I created. And there is that regular size tag. And again, I did a little stamp on the back, spot for journaling. This is one of the ephemera cards, which was only attached at the edge. And then we have an angled pocket on top of that notched pocket. There's another piece of that chipboard there and some braided jute, which I thought was really good with this collection as well. For this page, I have used, and you can do your own corners if you like. I have actually used a Sizzix die to create these little rounded corner pockets for mine. And I've just made a couple little cards using the same Kraft cardstock for journaling on the inside, the same navy cardstock for the outsides. And then some of these are the cutaways that are with the paper. And some of them are actually the ephemera cards. And then there's also one of the journaling cards in here. And this is just glued to the edge so that you can tip that in. And these little, this little Sizzix die is great for making these cute little pockets. And I'll show that a little bit closer for you. So then we have, on the opposite side, I didn't want too much bulk. So this side I used as a place where you could just put a photo or photos as a mat here. And then again, we have another one of those little corner pockets. This I have cut the Kraft, the navy, and a piece of one of the journaling cards along with a fussy cut. And I used a postage shaped die that I had in my stash to cut this. You could make these any shape you'd like. And that is just meant to slip in there, and you could put the picture over here, do a little journaling. If this was for a travel, I've used some strips from the cutaways. This was to use to create a spot to slide this other little journaling card. It's like the one on the other page. And I like the way this looks with the little starfish there and his little head poking out there. So that is that page. Another journal, excuse me, another photo mount here. And then this page, I have this little chipboard starfish. This is one of the cutaways from the paper. And this actually measures 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. So this is a 11.5-inch piece of paper. Let me double check that. Yes, so a little over 11.5. So we're looking at 11 7/8. 11 5/8, excuse me. And by the 4 1/4. And then it is scored down the middle. And the back side of this was glued to the page so that you could make this little flip up. Here we have another journaling, or excuse me, photo mount. And another one of those little corner pockets. And this card I created using the front side and back side of, because you get more than one in the ephemera packs. You get 2 of each, and I used both of them so that I could create this card here. And I will say too that all of my papers are inked on the edges with Vintage Photo Distress ink from Ranger. Here we have another photo mount, and the back side here is the waterfall. So this waterfall, the pages are 5 inches by 5 inches, and those were made by cutting 6 5.5 by 5 inch, and these are scored at 1/2 inch across the top, and I will show you how I did that as well. And these are, they open like so. Make sure I'm in the right camera view there for you. So with 6 you actually get 12 places for photos, which is nice, and a 5 by 5 is a really good size. Because you can fit 2 of the little smaller instant photos. You can fit a collage of them. You can fit a whole picture. And then here underneath there, I have just added this little strip on the sides of the jute braided rope again. a couple of the little cutaways, and another one of the journaling card. And then for my inside of my waterfall, I do like to finish mine. So when I'm all done with an album, I will go back and look at my scraps and see what I have that I have enough of. And I will cut these little strips, sometimes from the same, sometimes I coordinate them differently, and just put them in my little open spaces, especially when I'm using Kraft cardstock, because it shows up higher on this colored background, and this just looks more finished to me, and I like that look. So that is the waterfall. This is cutaways from strips of a cutaway that I cut in half and put it kind of at an angle there. And then the inside, I did this with one of the stickers from the collection pack. And that covers the thing that is holding the metal brad that holds the ring for the loop pin on the front, which is a good way to do that. You put the paper down and then add the sticker. So now I will show you how I created the middle. Let me show you this one more time. The middle pages here. As you can see, these 4 pages, which ends up being 8, are not on a spine system like you're used to seeing the accordion. This is actually all one piece that was made and then glued to the spine. And I like this method when making an album like this one. And so I will show you how I made that. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I made the middle pages of my album. So we will have 2 sheets of the cardstock that you're using. In this instance, it was this Kraft cardstock. And one is cut to 11 and a half by 7 3/4. And the other is cut to 11 by 7 3/4. So it's only 2 sheets of paper. And we will start with the 11 and a half inch piece. The 11 and a half inch piece is going to be scored at 5 1/4. And a little tip I will give you, a lot of people would just go over a half. I don't do it that way. I turn my page around and do it again. And that just ensures that that inch space that I am given in the middle is actually an inch. If the paper is off even just a little bit, I know I have an inch space here. So that is our first one. Again, I scored at 5 1/4 on the 11 and a half inch side, turned my paper all the way around and did that again. And then those are just folded on the score lines like so. And we will burnish those once we get them set. So then you take the 11 inch piece, place it on your scoreboard to the 11 inch side, and we're going to do the same thing here. We are going to score this at 5 1/4, flip it around, and score it at 5 1/4. And that is going to give us a 1/2 inch spine right down the middle. And when doing these, I like to make sure that my paper lines up really well before doing any gluing or any scoring. And I like to use my scoreboard for that. It really lends a helping hand. So now we have this piece and this piece. And what I also will do is put the bigger one, so the 11 and a half, I will lay down on my score pad, and you can see where there's a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch here on my scoreboard. It's not the easiest thing to put on camera. And then we are going to set this down to make sure that it's in the middle. And that should leave 1/8 of an inch on each side of the 1/2 inch down the middle. And we want to make sure it's nice and straight all the way down. I like to put my finger on it there, get a good adhesive glue. And you can do this with part with score tape as well. I just choose to use glue. Now here I have burnished that down just to look at this line and make sure that I am still showing that 1/4 inch space there on that side. And I'm just going to lift this up a little. And my glue would have to cooperate with me. Just going to lift this up. Run a bead of glue down that. And go ahead and adhere that down. And you may get a little glue on your scoreboard by doing it on your scoreboard. Mine gets very, very messy. Turn that over. Just going to grab a scoring tool here really quick. Just make sure you get that nice and flat. Turn this page and do the same. You want to make sure you get some movement there. All right. And here, let's do the same. So now, as you can see, that made this little booklet. And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages that quickly. So for the back side, before I adhere this to my spine, and you always want to make this, so my spine on my book is 1.5 inches. This is 1 inch. I like to have a 1/4 inch space on each side. So if you're making an album with a larger spine or more pages, just be sure that you adjust the measurements so that you have that 1/4 inch in between your cover and in between your back of your inside score lines for your spine. So for this portion, I will flatten this out, and then I'm going to grab some score tape, and I am just going to run score tape. I'm using 1/2 inch right down, right along that line. We don't want to go over the line because then you'll have, you know, little sticky glue stuff showing. I didn't quite get that straight. That's okay. And then I'm going to do another one. And don't be afraid if these overlap a little. It's not going to make a big difference. It's more important to make sure you don't go over your lines, your score lines, or your burnished folds, because then your book will not move very well, your pages. Okay, so I noticed here I got a little too much, and that's okay too. I'll just snip that off of there. Okay, and we're going to burnish down that, and I'm just going to use this one for another book, but I will show you how I line it up inside of the book. So if I was going to adhere this, I would just obviously peel this off and then open up my book. And as you can see, this has laid in here like so. So you have, hopefully you can see that. So you have this. And it is just put down exactly the same way as I adhered the two together. So you line this up on your spine of your book, leaving a 1/4 inch space on either side of your spine before taking the tape backing off and adhering it to your spine. And that is how you make the quick pages. And you can decorate your quick pages prior, or you can decorate them after. Usually what I do is I do my matting, so my base designer paper, put it all in there, and then put it in the book, and then I go back and do my actual decorating with my pockets and such. So that is that. So next I'm going to show you how I create this little notched pocket here. And that is made with a piece of the same craft paper that is 5 1/4 by 7. And because we don't want it to go all the way the size of the book. So this is scored on the sides at 1/2 inch. And you can go in 1/2 inch from here, as well as, so that would be at the 3/4 line. Or you can flip it like I do other stuff. As you can see, that's still 1/2 inch. Then we're going to turn it this way and do the 1/2 inch across the bottom as well. And that's going to give you this little neat pocket. Burnish all those lines down good. Open that one up, and we will burnish this one. It's all nice and straight. And then we're going to take scissors, and we're going to cut the edge of this off. So we're going to miter these corners, and I don't like to cut above or on the corner. I will go up about 1/8 of an inch above that, so that you don't cut into that corner. Now this is going to be hidden, so if you do accidentally cut a little too much, it's not going to hurt anything. I'm just, this is the way I do it, because that'll give you a nice fold, as you can see here. And that creates that little pocket. And that was notched out here with a decorative punch. You can use any kind of punch you want. If you want a circle, I actually used a We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board, the little notch on that. And then you would cover this with your paper and either use glue or score tape on these sides and adhere it inside the book, as you see here. Okay, so let's show you how I create my waterfall pages. I will show you on another paper because it is actually already done in the book, but I want to make sure that I show you how I do mine. So these again measure 5 1/2 by 5, which makes the pages all 5 by 5 squared. And in order to create these, we are going to take our sheets of 5 1/2 by 5, put them on the 5 1/2 side on the scoreboard, and score them at 1/2 inch. And for this book, I made 6 of these pages. So you will do this for each 5 1/2 by 5 by 5 1/2 inch sheet of the paper that you're using for your mats. In this instance, mine is Kraft. And then for waterfall pages, I usually will do my decorating with the designer papers on both sides, and I will set them all aside so that I can line them up. Now when I do these, I will give you a little tip. When working with decorated paper, a good tip to follow is look at all of your papers when you are cutting them out for your waterfalls. And keep in mind that you have 6 pages, but this turns to 12. So your backside page needs to be a pattern that is facing the proper direction. So if this were backwards and I had that capri paper on this side and flipped, my fish would be upside down. So just keep that in mind when you are creating your waterfalls, that you have however many, in this instance 6, that go this direction, as well as 6 that can go in the opposite direction. As you can see here, I used the paper with words on it, and I wanted to make sure that I put that on here. Some of the patterns in the collections will not make a difference, whether they're upside down or not. But many of them will. So you just want to make sure that you have enough for that. In this instance, I actually had an extra one left over because I did have an oops, but this can be used for something else, either in the book. You could actually take it if you have an extra and add a flap, just one flap to one of the journaling pages. So anyways, that's just a little tip from me. I've learned from many times of messing mine up, just to double check them before and make sure that I have them all. So to create, excuse me, to show you how I created this, I'm just going to use a demo book here. This is not obviously one that I will be finishing, but I did want to make sure I could show you how these waterfalls are created. So if this were our book here, this would be our back cover where we were putting this. You would take your waterfall, make sure this is nice and burnished, glue this adhesive, take a good adhesive and run it along here. You can also use score tape if that is what you prefer. And that would be placed right at the top of your paper, making sure that you have a space here and you're not overlapping that score line. And then once that one is placed, you would go on to the next. And I'm just going to go ahead and glue these ones that do not have paper on them, so I can use that for something else. So again, we're just going to run a bead of glue, and not too much. You don't want a lot of glue on here because it will overflow. So we just want to make sure that this is lined up, leaving as much into the middle of the page as you can get it, and just up to the top. Some people like to leave a little tiny space, like 1/8 of an inch at the top, and you can do that as well. And then burnish that way, flip it open, and again burnish it this way, making sure that you don't have any glue. So that would be your first. So also keep that in mind when you're building your waterfalls. If you want a specific one to be on the top, then that would be your first one, your first page that you make. So if you're particular about what is showing here in these 1/2 inch spaces, keep that in mind when you line up your papers to create your waterfalls. So then to put the next one on, again, we have that 1/2 inch scored part of our paper. And we would run a bead of glue along that one. And as you can see, I'm not using, like I said, a lot of glue. And sometimes I do use these with score tape. So here you have where that one is, and we're just going to go just at the bottom of it. We don't want to overlap it because then your waterfall will not move. And I like to take mine and just make sure that my lines all the way down are lining up before I really burnish that glue down. And then we just flip that one open. It's good. And we're going to do that. Burnish it also on the inside, making sure there's no excess glue. And that is how that is done. And you would continue doing that to the end of your waterfall. And that gives us a nice movement. If you overlap any of this area here, or your page gets a little crooked, these will not flip as nicely. So that is how I create my waterfall. And so I just want to say thank you for spending this time with me today and seeing my very first project as a very excited brand ambassador for Graphic 45. Have a wonderful day.